Welcome to the Credibility Blindspot. This is a webinar about why coaches don't get booked on podcasts, but I'm going to give you the 5-minute fix that will change everything. So this is a super actionable webinar. I'm going to be teaching, I'm going to be showing examples, I'm going to be asking questions that are going to get you into action right away. So I am Jessica Rhodes. If this is your first time joining me for a live webinar or masterclass, I am the founder and CEO of Interview Connections. We are the leading podcast guesting agency, and I'll tell you a little bit about my backstory and Interview Connections. So I started Interview Connections so I could be a stay-at-home mom. That's really what got me into business. I wasn't like I was listening to podcasts and I was like, I want to start a business in podcasting. This is me with my son, who's going to be 13 in March. Back when I was pregnant with him, he was my first child. He's my first child. I wanted to be home with him. And when I asked my parents for advice, my dad recommended that I start a virtual assistant business. My dad's name is Jim Palmer. He's known as the Dream Business Coach. And he told me about being a virtual assistant, having an online business, and he said he would be my first client. He asked me to book him on podcasts as a guest and to get people booked on his podcast. So that was my first foray into entrepreneurship and working online. And at the time, this was in 2013, that I was booking my dad on podcasts and booking people on his show. No podcast booking services existed. So I decided to start the first, Interview Connections. Fast forward to today, we are going into our 13th year in business. This is the booking team at Interview Connections. We have booked over 50,000 interviews. We've worked with over 1,000 clients. We're a multi-7-figure agency, and I do this all with me and my team. We all work from home remotely, and the vast majority of us are based here in Rhode Island or Massachusetts. So if you implement what I will teach you today, here are just some examples of what can happen and what your credibility can do for you. So Dr. Darla Bishop was booked as a guest on the world's #1 personal finance podcast, The Financial Feminist. Tori Dunlap has over 2 million followers on Instagram. She has an enormous audience. And it was because of Dr. Darla's credibility online that got her booked on this podcast. Our client, Dr. Christina L. Woods, was on the cover of Brains magazine because of her credibility and all of the podcasts that she's been a guest on. And this is Dr. Jolie Hamilton. She was booked and interviewed on Dr. Sanjay Gupta's podcast on the CNN network because of her credibility online. What she calls it is my wall of Google. When you Google for a jealousy expert, Dr. Jolie is who you're going to find. So these are just a few examples of what really strong credibility can do for you online and the opportunities that it can open up for you. So what you're going to learn today, number one, we're going to go through the 5 credibility signals that podcast hosts check in the first 30 seconds of you being recommended as a podcast guest. We're going to go through a quick 10-minute expert positioning audit so you can see for yourself what you need to tweak about your online presence to appear and show your credibility. And we're going to talk about how to package your expertise so it is instantly clear to podcast hosts. And I'll give you a very simple framework for cleaning up your online presence this afternoon. So let's dive right into it. So credibility signal number 1, podcast ready messaging. When podcast hosts are considering you as a guest, they're going to be quickly asking these questions. Number 1, will this person bring value to my audience? They need to know that first and foremost, because if there's no value in the episode, their listeners are going to tune out and they're not going to want to come back to the next episode. So they are first going to ask themselves, is this person going to bring value to my audience? Number 2, do they have a clear angle or topic that excites and intrigues me? When I talk to podcast hosts, maybe about a specific guest, they are going to tell me if that topic, if that guest that I'm recommending has something that is clear and exciting and different than other episodes they've done. I was a guest on Wendy McCallum's podcast. She has a podcast for coaches, and she actually does a lot of solo episodes. She will only bring on guests if they have a clear topic that is uniquely valuable to her audience. And when my team pitched me to Wendy's podcast, even though she doesn't do guests every week, she saw that my topic was very clear and very uniquely valuable to her target audience of newer coaches that are working to grow online. So when you have a very clear topic that is just not like a vague general area of expertise that lots of other people are talking about, you will stand out. Can they speak in frameworks and stories? Podcast hosts want to know that you have stories to tell, because stories are what bring a podcast to life. Stories are what make a podcast not just educational and informational, but entertaining. Edutainment is a word that I have heard that I think is a perfect way to describe when a guest has both valuable information with stories to tell to bring that information to light. So you want your topic and your messaging to communicate a little bit of edutainment. Are they just trying to sell, or do they want to share value? If your messaging reeks of how much you need clients and what your program is and why you're the best and why your clients love you, that is just saying, hey, I want to sell to your audience and I want more clients. You need to lead with value and you need to lead with stories, because that is what's going to tell a host that you are a great guest for their show. If you are leading or communicating at all that you want to sell to their audience, they are going to say no, or worse, they're just going to ignore your pitch. So I'm going to give you some examples as we go here so that, oh, thank you so much, Mick. So I'm going to give you some examples as we go so that it's not just information, but you can see what this actually looks like with some very successful coaches and podcast guests. So this is Lauren Elise Rogers. She's a certified holistic sexuality educator and embodied intimacy and relationship coach. This is her podcast one sheet. So this is basically the first thing that a podcast host is going to look at when she's being recommended as a guest. Now, does she have the 4 things that I talked about? Yes, 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 and yes. So will this person bring value to my audience? If the host even glances at this, they're going to say, yes, these topics are compelling. I can tell that there are stories that she can share. I mean, after being raised in a high control religion and getting married at 21, Lauren fought her way out to become the person she needed most. That tells me that she is not just textbook information guest. She actually has a story that is her origin story that got her to where she is today. Do they have a clear angle or topic that excites and intrigues me? I mean, any podcast host that is speaking to listeners who maybe want to learn more about sexuality and their relationship and intimacy, they're going to take one glance at this and say, oh, yes, no, this is perfect. Purity culture. Oh, yeah, I know that's something my audience struggles with. That would be great. Not many other people are talking about that. Not many other relationship coaches cover, long-term partnerships or consensual non-monogamy. Like, these are unique topics that make her different than just a general relationship coach. Are they just trying to sell, or do they want to share value? From this, I can't even tell what her programs and packages are. Clearly, she is wanting to provide value. Lauren is very clearly communicating that she has value to share. She has her own podcast. You can see her Instagram on here. Sexuality education. She leads with education. So when you have effective podcast ready messaging, your one sheet will communicate that you have value and that you're not just there to sell. Credibility signal number 2, message consistency. This is where I see a lot of coaches really drop the ball and lose a ton of opportunities, is that from platform to platform, they look like entirely different people. So your LinkedIn, your website, your Instagram, your bio, it all needs to tell the same story. If I look at your Instagram and then I look you up on Facebook and I look you up on your website and I Google you and you look like 5 different people, you are going to lose podcast hosts and opportunities. If each platform makes you look different or a different type of expert, people will be like, what do they do? I don't get it. So consistency is what feels safe and predictable. So you need to have consistency across all of your platforms. So that goes from things like your headshot, your branding, and just quite literally your tagline and what you say you do and who you say you are. So, for example, this is a snapshot of what my online presence looks like. This is my website. Interviewconnections.com, the very homepage of my website. We help coaches turn podcast interviews into dream clients. You go to my website, I'm going to tell you exactly who I help and what I help them do. My LinkedIn, I help coaches turn podcast interviews into dream clients. I'm the founder and CEO of the first ever podcast booking agency, Interview Connections. Okay. And then this is my Instagram. First to market, 12 plus years in business. We help coaches turn podcast appearances into a steady stream of clients, 50,000 interviews booked for 1,000 plus coaches. So wherever you see me online, yes, I'll probably have a different headshot, different photo, phrase it maybe a touch differently, but there's going to be no question if you look at me on Instagram versus. So, okay, Jim just said in the chat, I think Jessica enjoys a good photo shoot. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. All right. Or just come on in here. I have not had a professional photo shoot since 2019. So I have a lot of photos, but I want to share this because you don't need to be doing. Now, I do need to get a new photo shoot. That is like on my list, but you can communicate credibility and professionalism without being in a professional photo shoot every single month or like every single year even. And also, this is why I'm a big advocate of like wellness over getting work done, because I've never had any Botox filler, anything like that. This is all cold plunges and hydration. So I look very much the same. Now, this photo on my LinkedIn I took last year with my iPhone. You can do a lot with portrait mode on your iPhone. So if I guess I'm speaking to ladies here. If you put some makeup on, men, I don't know, brush your hair, like get a nice top, look nice, get a good, I have oh my God, you guys, my brain is not working today. I have a light here. Mick does not have to brush his hair. He's bald. But if you get a good like photo light on Amazon that is like nice and big, you can take great photos on your iPhone. So Lee says wonders of AI. I actually don't think you should use AI for photography. I see a lot of people do it and it just turns me off personally because I'm like, that's an AI photo. That's not even, it doesn't even, I feel like it makes me look different. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. Let's keep it going. Okay, so credibility signal number 3 is a professional online presence. Honestly, this just goes with what we were already talking about. Simple, clean, doesn't have to be perfect, but you got to have an updated website that clearly navigates people through your website, clear navigation, working links. One thing that you can do today yourself, or if you've got a kid or a virtual assistant, someone, I used to do this for my dad. The very first task that my dad had me do for him when I was a virtual assistant is he had me check links on his website. I can't tell y'all how often I go to a coach's website who's wanting to be on podcasts and they've got broken links. Check your links. It just throws off your credibility. Check your links. Make sure you got working links, professional photos. We just talked about that, and consistent branding, right? Logo, your photography, colors, messaging. It all needs to be consistent. Sloppy or anything outdated is going to cause friction in the decision-making process. And having a very clean, simple, professional website that doesn't look dated is really important. I've often seen, because we have thousands and thousands of coaches come to our master classes and learn about like how they can get booked on podcasts, asked us to book them on podcasts. And one of the biggest things that has us not only like turn them away as clients or not be able to book them is an outdated website. And this is especially common for coaches and consultants who like are crushing it through word of mouth. Like you've got a thriving 6 or 7 figure business, but you've never had to do online marketing. And you're like, yeah, but I'm so successful. And like, let me tell you all about myself. But if your online presence doesn't communicate that, a host is just going to look right past you. So you've got to have some type of clean, professional website. So this is a good example of a website that is great. Blindblaming.com. This is Kevin St. Clergy. He's a client of Interview Connections. I'm also his client. He's my business coach, and he's got a great website. So if you go there, really hits on all of the points that I would recommend. It's very clear what he talks about, what he does, who he helps. There's a way to convert. There's just a link right here where you can get his book. So having a nice, clean website that matches your branding is important. All right, credibility signal number 4, social proof and authority markers. So I don't want you to get overwhelmed and think like, oh my God, I don't have all of this, but what do you have and what can you put out front to communicate to hosts that you've got some social proof? There are other people that think you're credible. That's really what we're getting at here. So videos, articles, podcasts about the topics that you want to speak about on your show. Whatever topic you want to be interviewed about, if you have never written an article about it and posted that, you have never done a video about it, you've never gone live about it, you need to create content on your own platform before you can expect other people to feature you as an expert on their platform about that topic. So number 1, just start creating content. Write something about it. Hold up your phone and do a video about your topic. Teach something, tell a story. You need to start putting content out there because that is what hosts are going to look at, right? They're going to look at your LinkedIn, and if you've never posted or you haven't posted in 6 months, they are going to be like, this person is like not even creating content. They're not even putting content out on their own platform. You've got to get content out there. Media logos. If you've ever been featured or quoted, interviewed, get your media logos out there. Client case studies or testimonials. Who have you worked with? What brands have you helped? What types of clients have you supported? Books, speaker reel certifications. I'll give you some examples of what this looks like, but credibility is communicated through social proof and authority markers. So clearlythen.com. This is Jonathan Bennett. He's an executive coach. And this is his website where he has his podcast guest appearances. You can look at his podcast one sheet. He has the topics that he can be interviewed about. He's got all of these, video clips, screenshots of interviews he's done. So if somebody goes to his website, they're going to see, wow, like all of these podcast hosts trusted him to share his story with their audience. So that's social proof. That's authority. Credibility signal number 5 is clear expert positioning. Hosts need to understand instantly who you help and what problem you solve. That's it. They need to know those 2 things very, 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 very quickly. Susan Morgan Taylor is a great example. She does this very well from Pathway. This is the screenshot of her website. Susan Morgan Taylor, MA, specialist in women's sexuality and a sex therapist for couples with mismatched libido. I know exactly who she helps, and I know exactly what problems she solves. She helps couples who have a mismatched libido. That's the problem. That's who she helps. Very, very clear. You need to be able to communicate this clearly, instantly, if a podcast host is going to make the connection, whether or not you're a good fit for their show. So here are the credibility signals before we move on to the next part of the webinar. Podcast ready messaging is number 1. Number 2 is message consistency. Does every platform you have online telling the same message? Number 3, your online presence, your website, your social media, is it communicating that professionalism? Social proof and authority markers are other people talking about you. Are you speaking on your own platform about what you want to talk about on somebody else's platform? And then clear expert positioning. You say exactly who you help and what problem that you solve. So I want you to put in the chat, what is your number 1 focus from this list? What is the one thing on this list that you're like, I got to work on that a little bit? Mick asks, what are the points you would recommend? Do you have a 1-pager on this for interview purposes? I think that question came a few minutes ago, so I'm not sure what that was referencing exactly. Pushing out Google review to the public. Message consistency. Yeah. Clear expert positioning. Social proof. I've been on podcasts and written articles, but I haven't compiled them well. And just start getting them out there. I'm going to break down. I'm going to give you some very simple steps as we go forward. But sometimes this can feel overwhelming. Like, oh my God, I need to work on my website. I need to work on my messaging. I want you to take one action today. If you have written some great content, do a post on LinkedIn. If you need to work on your message consistency, look at all of your platforms and just update your headline, update your bio on Instagram to match whatever you're saying on LinkedIn. What about when you're just starting? We'll get there, Lee. Keep watching. Okay. Now, the 10-minute expert positioning audit. So if a podcast host looks you up online right now, will they want to book you on their show? Let's find out. I feel like this is a game show. Let's find out. So your one sentence positioning, can a podcast host immediately understand who you help, what problem you solve, and what makes you different? So let's get into action, folks. Type it in the chat. Just answer the questions. Number one, who do you help? Put it in the chat right now. If you're watching the replay, I want you to type it in the comments. Who do you help? Say it right now in the chat. Who do you help? Colin, I help businesses that want to get into government contracting. What types of businesses? What industry? Who's the decision maker? Nicole, women who need help engaging with their money. What age? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they business leaders? Are they single women? Are they married women? Anyone who is looking for real estate solutions, buying, selling, investing. Who's looking for real estate investing solutions? Executive leaders. I help executive leaders activate the excellence inside their people, processes, and purpose and translate into meaningful businesses. The word anyone is bad. So these are great starts. So what I'm really going to challenge you all to do is just to go a step or two deeper behind what you're saying. So I'm seeing women, I'm seeing businesses, I'm seeing anyone, I'm seeing leaders. Be more specific. So because there are podcasts speaking to people, there are podcasts speaking to leaders, but there's so many different types of podcasts speaking to somebody who identifies as a woman, somebody identifies as a leader. So we want to get a little bit more specific. So who you help, see how much more specific you can get. What problem do you solve? What problem do you solve? Put it in the chat. So who was it that talked about real estate? So Matt said anyone who's looking for real estate solutions. What problem do you solve, Matt, that is solved by real estate solutions? And what type of solution? Buying, selling, investing. So Ken, I help newish 1 to 5 years couples. All right, we're getting specific with indecision about life partnership. Ooh, that's juicy and specific. I like it. Get the tools and answers you need to commit fully or break up amicably without fear or regret. That's the biggest life decision you'll ever make. That's good, Ken. I like that. I like it. Heidi, photographers, professional and lovers of photography who yearn to connect with the spiritual through photography. So what is the problem that you're solving, Heidi? So you're speaking to what they yearn to do, but something my coach tells me is no pain, no sale. What is the people want to solve a problem. Carolyn, problem I solve, poor hiring decisions. What happens when they hired poorly? Do they lose money? They lose time? They affect morale, right? What problem you solve? And then number 3, what makes you different? What makes you different? What about you is different from every other person who can talk about hiring correctly? What about you, Heidi, makes you different from everyone else who talks about photography and spirituality? Matt, what about you makes you different from other people who talk about real estate? So these are the questions that you want to ponder, because when you get really clear on who you help, what problem you solve, and what makes you different, we can craft a bio and a one sheet that hosts glance at and they're like, hell yeah, this person looks amazing. Robin, I help women with symptoms the medical community doesn't know what to do with, move out of chronic pain without feeling the overwhelm. I like that. I like that. Lee, inconsistent business performance that costs you money and growth. Good. All right. We're making good progress. Great job, everyone. All right. Your social proof. If a podcast host looks at your online presence, can they see clients you've worked with, logos, testimonials, case studies? How often are you posting a testimonial? How often are you posting a screenshot of an email from a client that says how you've changed their life? And of course, you can black out their name if it needs to be anonymous, or just ask them for permission. Hey, can I screenshot this and share it on my social media? How often are you talking about the clients that you're serving? Something I learned in a mastermind group years ago was the client is the hero. Talk about the work talk about your clients and the successes they're having. So if they look at your online presence, they glance at your social media, can they see, or do they have to dig back 6 months ago, the last time you posted a testimonial? Media outlets or podcasts that have featured you. How often are you posting about the features you're getting, the interviews you're getting? And I know that you're here because maybe you're not on a lot of podcasts. We'll get there. Activity on your social media pages is really important. You don't need a huge following, but you got to be posting consistently, because one thing that podcast hosts are going to look for when they evaluate you as a potential guest is like, is this person going to share my show? When they're a guest on my podcast, you think they're going to think, well, they post it to their audience. And if you haven't posted in 6 months, the chances that you're going to go ahead and post a podcast appearance is low because you're just not doing it. So posting consistently is important. Case studies, testimonials, stories, tips, just start posting, because more activity is what will communicate to a podcast host that you're a leader. You're leading your audience, which means you're going to be a great guest leader for their audience. If you have a B2B audience, make sure you're active on LinkedIn. I was doing some client work this week and I had podcast hosts saying, send me their LinkedIn. They wanted to look at my client's LinkedIn to see if she was active. So make sure that you are posting and that you are actively communicating to your audience. So Matt says, that always feels like a bit of a hang up for me, to be honest. There are so many things involved in the process coming up with the language. Okay, so we're talking about your message. Got it. Okay, yes. All right, your podcast readiness. This is the second one. So when a podcast host reviews your pitch, can they see clear speaking topics, frameworks or signature ideas, and where else you have been featured as an expert? So this is Dr. Jolie Hamilton's one sheet. So it clearly communicates the relationship coach for couples who color outside the lines. It has some logos of where else she's been featured, and it also has some very clear topics and signature frameworks and ideas. That's where your one sheet's going to come in. Now we're going to get into how to package your expertise so it is instantly clear to podcast hosts. So kind of talked about this a little bit, but this is a very clear framework that's going to help you really with your messaging and your positioning. So who do you crush it with? This one question is what had me decide to really focus on coaches in the last couple of months. I used to really talk to entrepreneurs and business owners and like real estate investors and financial advisors. And I would talk about all these different types of entrepreneurs. And when my coach, Kevin, said, who do you crush? He says, like, who's your ideal client? And I was like, we crush it with coaches. Like coaches always they crush it. And he's like, that's your ideal client. And so now all of my messaging, my marketing, my ads, I'm just speaking to coaches and my conversions have doubled. So who do you crush it with? I want you to tell me in the chat who you crush it with. Like, think about your clients that have had the best results, that you've loved working with. They give you the best testimonials. They're always referring. Without giving us their personal name and information, who are they? Who do you crush it with? Put it in the chat. Let us know. Maybe you've got some clients in this audience right now, but who do you crush it with? Because knowing who your ideal client is and the results that you help them with, that is so, so important to then create the messaging. Because think about it this way. We want to go over who you crush it with when you're actually working with your clients, because to create messaging up here at the top of your funnel, that messaging needs to speak to your ideal client. So if you know exactly who you crush it with when you're working with clients, they are specific people. They are unique, individual, very specific people. But then when you start marketing, you're like, women. But wait, no, you definitely have specific people that you crush it with. So we got to keep that specificity up here if we're going to magnetically attract those clients down here. Moms of kids in sports and weekend warriors. That sounds like me, Frederick. I've got kids in sports and my husband's a weekend warrior. So, you can be even like, just think about who you really, really crush it with. Is it moms of daughters, sons? How many kids does she have? What sports are her kids in? 3 to 5 year business owners who want to get into government contracting in service-based industries. And I want you to tell me, so these are great just descriptions of ideal clients, Right. Again, without saying the client's name, I want you to tell me exactly, describe the client that you crushed it with. You're like, if they told everyone about how awesome I am, I would have no problems because I'd have so much business. Like, who is that client that you're like, I just want to clone them? And I will tell you, every client I've told you about in this webinar so far, I'm like, if I could clone them and just have more of them, I would be happy as a clam. Like, these are my ideal clients. So think about, who do you crush it with? I think asking the question in this way, I do think will activate you to think about really who you want more of, and get away from this like general messaging. Clients who want to create their lives and photography through their inner truth, no rules, reflection. So again, we're still describing what, and maybe you haven't worked with any clients yet if that's you, but think about, who is one person you have worked with? Describe them. Lee says, that's a great question. I'm stumped. Well, maybe you haven't worked with a dream client yet, but who would be a dream client? Okay. So that's really, really important. Who do you crush it with? What does your ideal client struggle with? Know the pain point that you get rid of for your clients. What does your ideal client struggle with? Nicole, deconstructing Christian millennial women. Nice. Yes, Mick says that's why you need a coach like Jessica. Oh yeah, don't worry. Lee and I have already talked. um, oh yes, Frederick, now we're talking. Parents worried about concussions in their kids playing sports. Okay, what sports have the most concussions? Soccer, football, maybe not basketball. I don't know how many concussions are happening, but like you could drive even more to like the exact type of sport. What do your clients, lacrosse? Yeah. So what do your clients struggle with? Heidi, when you think of your clients, they yearn for their inner truth and spirituality, but like what are they struggling with? What does working with you help solve for them? Keep thinking about this, because really knowing what they struggle with is the key. If they don't have a pain point, there's no problem, then they probably like there's no reason to hire you. What problem are you solving? This is so important. If you cannot communicate this, this will make it hard for hosts to book you and for you to attract clients through online marketing and podcasting. All right, Nicole, they struggle to sort out what they were taught. What do they want to keep? What do they no longer believe? How does this apply to money? Who should they listen to? Who understands that they don't want to stick to a party line, but they do have deep religious beliefs? This is good. This is good. This is so specific. Like I grew up Christian. I get this. That's perfect, Nicole. Great job. How do you help them? What are your unique methods, frameworks, strategies? How do you help your clients solve the problem that they have? What is the solution? Put it in the chat. What is the solution? Lee, achieving business results, no matter what they do to fix it or how often they have tried to fix it. So put it in the chat. How do you help them solve their problems? What do you offer? What is your modality, methodology, strategy? How do you help them solve their problem? All right, this is a fun one. What stories would you be so excited to talk about on podcasts? Stories are what bring your expertise to life. So what stories would you be really excited to talk about on podcasts? All right, Heidi, person who wanted to go deeper with their photography and haven't found the way to do that. Solution is going within rather than looking, feeling what you resonate with, exploring what keeps you from taking the shot you really want to take. All right, I like it. I like it. So what stories would you be so excited to share about on podcasts? Frederick, identify whether the child has any of the 8 genes that increase contact. Oh, that's good. That's like a great topic right there. Provide practical actions to lower risk and severity. Great topic. Speaks right to the pain point. Other than just keep the head out of the way. Yeah. Todd, leverage AI to streamline operations. Increase sales and lead generation, improve efficiency. Perfect. Understand the root cause of project failure and leading them to root cause corrective action. Excellent. So we're getting some really good topic ideas in here. So now talk about the stories that you would be excited to talk about. Darren, how I reversed my type 2 diabetes and lost 80 pounds in 11 months. Sounds like it'd be a really fun story to talk about. And I bet there's a lot for your audience and other audiences to learn. Robin would be excited to talk about my own health journey and finally understanding there is no magic bullet to better health. Yes. For me, I've been interviewed on some podcasts where I shared my story of, I always love talking about my story of like bringing on a business partner. My business partner left Interview Connections in December, and sharing about that story and just the evolution of Interview Connections by stepping out of the CEO seat and back into the CEO seat and ownership changes. That's always a story I'm excited to talk about because it's not just my expertise on podcast guesting, but it's like who I am as a business owner and entrepreneur and how that has impacted how I'm running my company. Like, I'm really always excited to share about those stories. Lee says, the moment I realized what was creating the inconsistency in business results and the simple steps to turn this around. Yeah. So I love that you said the moment. The moment is a powerful way to tell a story, because oftentimes podcasts are like, theory and like tips and this broad stuff, but like bringing people into a moment is what paints a picture in their mind that makes the podcast more engaging and entertaining to listen to. Knowing the answers to these questions is what gives you the blueprint for interview topics that clearly package your expertise to podcast hosts. So here is a simple framework for cleaning up your online presence today. So number one, check your social media profile photos and cover images. Are they high resolution? Are they bright? Do they look like you today? I did reveal the secret that a lot of my photos were taken a long time ago, but like I kind of look the same. Do they match from one profile to the next? It doesn't have to be the same photo everywhere, but like, does it still look like you? Are your social media pages public? A lot of coaches, they start their Instagram or their social media and it's private. And then when people start finding them, they're like, wait, your profile's private. I can't find it. So very, very simple. Do you have a clear tagline in your bio that says who you help and what you help them do? Do you have a link to your website in all of your social media bios? This is big, including Facebook. I know many of us aren't really using Facebook a ton for business, but if people find you on Facebook, is there a link to your website on your Facebook profile? Do you have a link to your website on your LinkedIn? I can't tell you how many coaches I'm like trying to hunt down where their website is. I can't even find it. Don't make it hard for people to find you. Do you have okay. And then also check your YouTube channel for this as well. So just do an audit of your whole online presence. Brick and mortar businesses will have secret shoppers that come through, secret shop to see like what was the experience when I walked in the door. As a coach, your online presence, your social media, your website, that is your store. And if people can't find it, they can't find their way around, they're confused from one room to the next, you're losing people. So I want you to secret shop yourself today. After this webinar, I want you to go to your website. I want you to click through all the pages. I want you to go to your LinkedIn, your Instagram, your Facebook, and think to yourself, if I am an ideal client for me, would I want to work with me? And if the answer is no, fix whatever made you say no. Podcast guesting is a relationship strategy. Hosts will want to interview you for who you are, not how rich and famous you are. We are talking about your online positioning and your credibility. And not once did I tell you that you need to have some massive following and a ton of followers. This is not about following. This is about communicating credibility, even if you're just starting out, right? So with some very simple tweaks to your online presence, your credibility will, hold on a second. Your credibility will shine through and landing you interviews on shows that speak to your ideal clients. We've got some great stories in the chat. Excellent, excellent. You can also, I don't know if I said this. I don't think I said this in one of my slides here. So let me tell you right now, one little hack that you can do is you can take let's say your LinkedIn, because I know a lot of you are on LinkedIn, you can take your LinkedIn, like just the URL to your LinkedIn profile, and then go to ChatGPT and put it in ChatGPT and just said, hey, audit my LinkedIn and tell me what I need to fix to be a more credible expert. You can get a whole checklist of ideas from AI so that you can just make these little tweaks. So definitely leverage AI to help you put this all into action. And I know all this because I got booked on my very first podcast as a guest when I was a new mom. I was just 6 months into my business. I was brand new. I hadn't even launched interviewconnections.com yet. I was still a virtual assistant and I was booking my dad on podcasts. And with the exact framework I showed you today, I leveraged credibility, not fame, not influencer status, to get booked on hundreds of podcasts and work with over 1,000 clients over the course of now almost 13 years. Oh, what was the prompt? If you just go and put a link to your LinkedIn and just put it in ChatGPT and just say, ChatGPT, my goal is to be a more credible expert. So podcast hosts want to interview me. What about my profile would you recommend I change to achieve this goal? Play around with different prompts, but yeah, just put a link to your LinkedIn into ChatGPT and it'll give you some very specific, tips. Because it would take us hours to sit here and go through everything about your LinkedIn, but that's where AI is really helpful. All right. And I want to help you do this. I want to help you not only today in this webinar and tell you to fix your online presence so you communicate more credibility, but when you have credibility, I want to help you shine and get on these podcasts that are going to want to interview you and put you in front of your ideal clients. So when we start working together, this is what it's going to look like. And I know I've spoken to several of you on a consultation call. So if you haven't yet booked one, you can go to interviewconnections.com/call to schedule a free discovery call. In the first 30 days, this is what it's going to look like. So basically by the end of March, you're going to have a tight, credible offer and podcast ready messaging. On that discovery call, we're going to talk through with you, your origin story, who you help, what you do, what your offer is. So I love that you're all typing it in the chat. When you book a discovery call with us, you're going to have the opportunity to share about this one-on-one with me or my team, Erica. We're going to create a podcast ready media kit. So your one sheet, your media kit, we're going to write and design that for you. And you'll have a proven podcast one sheet that will get you booked on podcasts. We'll also give you a media page template. So that way you have an idea of what you could do on your website to showcase your credibility. We're going to write 4 to 6 interview topics that position you as a leading authority in your niche. And we're going to write clear criteria for which podcasts will drive results for your business. And by the end of March, you'll be booked on your first 3 podcasts. We'll meet one-on-one and you'll get some feedback and a plan for all of your future bookings. And you will have instant credibility in your field. Christina Woods, when she was booked on her first podcast, before it was recorded, before it went live, she posted that she got booked on a podcast. And from that post, she got hired to speak at a retreat where then she got several paying clients. This was before any interviews were recorded or live, but this is going to give you instant credibility as soon as you start getting booked on podcasts. So book your call at interviewconnections.com/call. Let's talk about what's going to happen by the end of May. So basically, after your first 90 days, you're going to be featured on at least 9 aligned podcasts. You're going to start having warm, pre-sold leads hitting your calendar because they are going to hear you on podcasts. They're going to be following you online. They're going to want to work with you. You will have attended 3 of our mastermind sessions. So inside Interview Connections, you're not just getting on podcasts, you're actually participating in our mastermind and group coaching calls, as well as one-on-one coaching sessions with your booking agent. And you'll have at least 2 months of daily social media content from all of these podcast interviews that will help repurpose for you. So book your discovery call, interviewconnections.com/call. And these are some very common wins that happen after just 90 days of working with us. Natasha and Isaac Ho, they are coaches. They closed a $21,000 client before any interviews had even gone live from the credibility and from the relationships with podcast hosts. Christina, I just shared with you this story. Ben Hakama, the first podcast host who interviewed Ben, became a paying client and paid for his entire year of podcast guesting. And this client, did I tell you, because of the podcast that you're getting me on, I was booked on 2 summits, one with 80,000 enrolled and the other with 500,000 enrolled. These interviews will connect you with other opportunities, and your credibility as a podcast guest is what's going to lead you into other platforms and opportunities. So book your discovery call at interviewconnections.com/call. So let's fast forward a year, right? February 2027, what's going to happen? Podcast guesting will become a proven and repeatable growth channel for you. So very common results that we see with clients after just a year, paid speaking engagements. We have many, many clients who speak to that podcast hosts are booking them as a paid speaker. People are hearing them on podcasts and reaching out and inviting them to be a paid speaker. Many of our clients talk about how at least a third of the hosts who interview them end up becoming a client. 10x email list growth. So every time you're on a podcast and you're telling people, go to my website, this is where you can learn more, people are opting into your website. And now you're growing this audience of people that are following you and getting your emails on a weekly basis. And about a 4x return on investment. Scarlett Stanhope, who will be live on the Interview Connections podcast next week. I just interviewed her for our podcast. She has seen a 52% return on investment. She has a 45 plus hour library of content of all of the podcasts that she's been a guest on, so that people that follow her can listen to her on all of these other podcasts. So interviewconnections.com/call, book your discovery call today. And we offer a month-to-month membership. And if we don't get you booked, we don't charge you anymore until we catch up. So this is a guaranteed program where you're getting on 3 podcasts every single month. And if you do your part and we don't hit the 3 bookings, we don't charge you again. We get you those bookings. So it is a guarantee that when you work with us, we're going to book you on these podcasts and help you grow your business. So there's no excuses, no hidden fees. You pay for results. Interviewconnections.com/call is where you can book your discovery call. So we've got some bonuses for clients who enroll with us in February. So we're going to give you that custom podcast media kit, 1 sheet, and a media site template. You're going to get an offer and positioning tune-up. So right away on that onboarding call in those first couple of weeks, we're going to really tune up your offer and your positioning to make sure you're communicating what you do, who you are effectively. You're going to be in our private coach community. We have a school community. We have monthly mastermind calls and networking calls. So right away, you're going to be able to tap into our network. And I'm going to send you your startup kit, your microphone, your ring light, and your headphones. So interviewconnections.com/call. So why now? We are enrolling just 20 new members in the month of February. We do all of our outreach human to human, no AI. We have 11 full-time team members here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts that send out these pitches, that market you to these podcast hosts. We're not using AI to do this work. So when spots fill, doors are closed. So there are a couple different ways that you can invest in our program. You can pay annually. You get a month free, priority onboarding, and all the bonuses are locked in, or you can do monthly. It's very flexible. There's no long-term contract. Either option is great. It's up to you. So you go to interviewconnections.com/call to book your discovery call. So what happens next? So the first phase of this is going to be getting clarity on your offer and building out your media assets. That should say before March, apologies. Consistent Q1 bookings and warm leads, and compounding growth channel by this time next year. Your visibility this quarter has already been decided. All right, it's February. We've got about 2 months left in Q1. It's already been decided. So right now we're looking at the second 2 quarters of the year, Q2 and Q3. That is what you are investing in. So if you put it off any longer, now you're looking at Q4, right? So why now? Because you want to make 2026 your best year ever, and you have to plan and execute now for what you want to build this year. So your next step is to book a discovery call. This is not a pitch call. We are not going to get on this call and pitch you and pressure you and tell you to sign up. We're going to ask you several questions about your origin story. We're going to ask you about, what challenges are you facing in your business right now, who your ideal client is, we're going to get to know you first, because if we cannot help you based off of where you are and what you do, we will tell you that. All right. We want to learn about you to make sure that this offer that we have is the right fit. And if it is, we'll walk through how to get started and how to sign up to work with Interview Connections. So interviewconnections.com/call to